Okay. Hello there. Hello. Hello. Hello there. Okay, what's your name, beautiful? Oh, Celia. Okay, that's a very pretty name. Okay, my name is Hamish. Hello. Bull. Oh no, I'm not really interested in bulls. Okay, I don't want to play. Wouldn't you like to have a nice conversation with me? Okay. Okay. Go right. I'll play your ball for a second, and then we'll have a nice, lovely conversation afterwards. Okay. Okay. No, Melassie. Okay, Melassie. That's enough. Okay. Okay. No, Melassie. Look. So what brings you around these parts? Okay. Okay. No. Aren't you a big girl now? Okay.
Very big girl.
Okay. You know, big girls aren't that interested in bulls, you know. Okay.
This big girl is there.
Sorry, Melassie?
This big girl is interested in bulls.
Okay. No. Big girls are interested in drinking. Okay.
They're drinking there. They're boring. The water is so boring.
Okay. Oh, no, Melassie. There's far more interesting things than water. Okay.
There milk?
No, not milk. No.
Is there milk?
Okay, what are you doing, Melassie?
Suckling.
No, Melassie.
There's milk.
No, I don't have any milk. I'm a man.
There's poop.
Okay, no.
There's fish.
No. Well, there is fish. Okay, if you come to the pub with me, I can get you some fish.
Pub.
Okay, and we can get to know each other better. Okay. Okay.
Pub.
Sorry?
Pub.
Oh, pub. Okay, the pub's great, Melassie.
What's a pub?
I see. It's a great place for big girls and boys to have a lovely conversation and have some drink. Okay.
Drink of water.
No, Melassie. There's far more interesting things than water. Okay.
Milk.
No, you can get some milk, I'm sure, but no. The big girls like beer, wine, and champagne. Okay, and all sorts of exciting drinks. Okay.
Beer.
Okay, beer, Melassie. So why don't you and me come to the pub, and we can get to know each other better, if you know what I mean. Okay.
I don't know what you mean. No.
Okay. All right. See ya.
Yeah.
Stay here a second. I'll be back. I'll be back in a second. Okay. Right. Here we go. Okay. Look at this, Celia. Okay. There we go. Oh, Celia. Celia! Look what I bought you! Okay! Look at it! Yes, there's a bottle, but look at the front! Okay! Okay, look what it says! Okay! Okay, it says Celia! Okay!
My name.
Okay, you need to drink now for you! Okay!
Is it mine?
Well, you can have some if you like. Okay.
It has my name on it.
Okay. Okay, so you can play your ball anytime. You haven't drunk any Celia before.
They're drinking me.
Okay. Okay, there we go, Melassie. Okay, get some more down here. Okay, now, Melassie, why don't you and I get to go know each other better? Okay. Come give me a kiss. Okay. There we go, Melassie. Okay. Oh, lovely. Now.
Yeah.
Now, come on, Celia. Give me a nice, lovely kiss. Okay. Okay. Hello? Are you okay?
What?
What? What?
What?
Celia, are you okay?
What?
All right. All right. Let's go together. Okay. Go get off it. Okay. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Delia? My name.
Bye.